prejudice. Indians, it was said, didn't have the requisite temperament for exact science. Well, Bose was determined to prove this wrong, and here in the archives we can see just how fast he set to work. This is a report of the 66th meeting of the British Association in Liverpool, September 1896. And here is Bose, the first Indian ever to present at the association meeting, talking about his work and demonstrating his apparatus. He'd built and improved on the detector that Lodge described, because in the hot, sticky Indian climate, he'd found that the metal filings inside the tube that Lodge used to detect the waves became rusty and stuck together. So Bose had to build a more practical detector using a coiled wire instead. His work was described as a sensation. The detector was extremely reliable and could work on board ships, so had great potential for the vast British naval fleet.
Britain was the centre of a vast telecommunications network which stretched almost around the world, which was used to support an equally vast maritime network of merchant and naval vessels which were used to support the British Empire.
But Bose, a pure scientist, wasn't interested in the commercial potential of wireless signals, unlike Marconi.
This was a sort of a new, cutting-edge field, but Marconi wasn't a trained scientist, so he did come at things in a fairly different way, which may have been why he progressed so quickly in the first place. And he was very good at forming connections with the people that he needed to form connections with to enable his work to be done.
Marconi used his connections to go straight to the only place that had the resources to help him. The British Post Office was a hugely powerful institution. When Marconi first arrived in London in 1896, these buildings were newly completed and already heaving with business from the Empire's postal and telegraphy services. Marconi had brought his telegraph system with him from Italy, claiming it could send wireless signals over unheard-of distances. And the Post Office engineer-in-chief, William Preece, immediately saw the technology's potential. So Preece offered Marconi the great financial and engineering resources of the Post Office, and they started work up on the roof. The old headquarters of the Post Office were right there, and between this roof and that one, Marconi and the Post Office engineers would practice sending and receiving electromagnetic waves. The engineers helped him improve his apparatus, and then Preece and Marconi together demonstrated it to influential people in government and the Navy. What Preece didn't realise was that even as he was proudly announcing Marconi's successful partnership with the Post Office, Marconi was making plans behind the scenes. He'd applied for a British patent on the whole field of wireless telegraphy and was planning on setting up his own company. When the patent was granted, all hell broke loose in the scientific community. That patent was itself revolutionary. You see, patents could only be taken out on things that weren't public knowledge. But Marconi famously had hidden his equipment in a secret box. And here it is. When his patent was finally granted, Marconi ceremoniously opened the box. Everyone was keen to see what inventions lay within. Batteries forming a circuit, iron filings in the tube to complete the circuit to ring the bell on top. Nothing they hadn't seen before. And yet Marconi had patented the lot.
The reason why Marconi is famous is not because of that invention. He doesn't invent radio, right? But he improves it and turns it into a system. Lodge doesn't do that. And that's why we remember Marconi, and that's why we don't remember Lodge.
The scientific world was up in arms. Here was this young man who knew very little about the science behind his equipment, about to make his fortune from their work. Even his great supporter, Preece, was disappointed and hurt when he found out that Marconi was about to go it alone and set up his own company. Lodge and other scientists began a frenzy of patenting every tiny detail and improvement they made to their equipment. This new atmosphere shocked Bose when he returned to Britain. Bose wrote home to India in disgust at what he found in England. Money, 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 all the time. What a devouring greed. I wish you could see the craze for money of the people here. His disillusionment with the changes he saw in the country he revered for its scientific integrity and excellence is palpable. Eventually, though, it was his friends who convinced Bose to take out his one and only patent on his discovery of a new kind of detector for waves. It was this discovery that would lead to perhaps an even greater revolution for the world. He had discovered the power of crystals.
This replaces older techniques using iron filings, which are messy and difficult and don't work well. And here's a whole new way of detecting radio waves, and it's one that's going to be at the centre of a radio industry.
Bose's discovery was simple, but it would truly shape the modern world. When some crystals are touched with metal to test their electrical conductivity, they can show rather odd and varied behaviour. Take this crystal, for example. If I can touch it in exactly the right spot with the tip of this metal wire and then hook it up to a battery, it gives quite a significant current. But if I switch around my connections to the battery and try and pass the current through in the opposite direction, it's a lot less. It's not a full conductor of electricity. It's a semiconductor, and it found its first use in detecting electromagnetic waves. When Bose used a crystal like this in his circuits instead of the tube of filings, he found it was a much more efficient and effective detector of electromagnetic waves. It was this strange property of the junction between the wire, known as the cat's whisker, and the crystal, which allowed current to pass much more easily in one direction than the other, that meant it could be used to extract a signal from electromagnetic waves. At the time, no one had any idea why certain crystals acted in this way. But to scientists and engineers, the strange behavior had a profound and almost miraculous practical effect.